Yes, a very good morning and welcome to another beautiful Tuesday. As we as we continue to discuss different matters, big shout out to Gituku and the team earlier on. Yeah, tafadhali kama hujachukua kura. Yeah. Anyway, I guess that boat has sailed. There's so much conversation about elections, and it's only Feb. Let's wait and see how it will go. Well, today we're going to talk about another interesting, deep topic. And first of all, I'll introduce everybody. I'll start with Bobby. How you doing? Uko sawa?
Niko fiti sana.
Kila kitu iko poa?
Niko na feel kama makeup yangu colorful.
Fresh.
Excited for the week.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hapo sawa.
Wewe ukoaje?
Mimi niko fresh. Yeah, unajua ni mzuri sana. People don't often ask that question. Mimi niko sawa.
Yeah, that's nice.
Sana. Thank you very much. Shaz, how are you?
Mzuri sana. Yeah, na
Uko poa?
wewe? Niko poa sana. Wiki yangu imekuwa fiti.
This is great.
What to bamba, man.
Kila siku ninaongea more and more.
Wow, that's great. That's great. CJ, how are you doing?
Very good. How are you?
I'm super.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I don't know why we nearly, matched with Shaz.
Yes.
Yeah.
You need
The top and the shoes, and then Roberta's makeup. There is some form of black. Shata, I think the black is in his heart. But anyway, it is great minds. It is all great minds and great vibes, and no greater mind than one Shata boy.
Wagwan.
Uko vipi?
Niko best.
Uko salama?
Kabisa.
Eldoret ilikuwa sawa?
Ilikuwa poa.
Yes.
Kabisa, kuna kitu alinipatia nikapita nayo airport. Mungu wangu ananipenda. Guy. Unajua nilijulia nyumbani, nilijitoa nikichange hivi, najiulia nimepita airport hivi. Guy. Wow. Mungeniona kwa TV, mungenitangaza,
tukakutangaza. Wacha tuachie hapo so that just plead the fifth. Don't incriminate yourself. It's all good. So today I want to talk about something that is often talked about in terms of dealing with it, and it's called grief management. So grief and loss. It is a rather wide topic, but a very important one as well. Everybody. Not everybody, but most people know, the stages of grief as have been outlined. But the problem is recognizing what stage you're at, recognizing how to deal with it, recognizing the difference between how men and women process and deal with grief, recognizing where your partner is at. And I did this yesterday in the group, and I'll start again with CJ. There's one time way back, just to show you that I always listen when you speak. You mentioned that, in a relationship, people change, and you have to kind of have some sort of, let's call it elasticity.
Right.
To see, because when you meet this person, you don't know how they are when they get to 30. You don't know when they get to 40, how they'll be. You don't know how they behave when they have a son, when they have a daughter, when they have a baby, and when they lose a job, and also when they lose a loved one. So in that context, how do you feel people in a relationship should handle each other during moments of grief?
Well, very difficult because sometimes even the person, whether it is a partner or a spouse, is not prepared for the season that this person has gone into. If we're talking about grief from the point of the loss of a loved one, most of the time that is something that is not anticipated. Even people who have had their relatives in hospital for a while, they still somehow hope that this person is going to make it and be well. So when you're dealing with a person who is grieving, most of the time you're dealing with something that you're also being thrown into. It's not that you prepared for when this person will be grieving, then you will offer this kind of support. The other thing is that even the people who grieve and mourn do not prepare for how they will mourn. When you lose somebody, how you respond to that is dependent on the relationship you had. You will have, for example, a whole family lose either a parent or they will lose a sibling. They will not all mourn the same. It depends on levels of connectivity. It depends on personality. It depends on the emotional stability. So they'll all be mourning the same person or grieving over the same person, but doing it very differently.
Right.
So again, that puts the partner in a place where they're not very certain of what to expect and how to go about this. So what they have got to do is, first of all, allow the other person to grieve. They just need to be there as a support system. Don't talk too much. Don't try too much, because they're also shocking themselves a lot of times. You'll find people who will go into alcohol or drugs, or they will get into intimacy as a way of expressing their grief. There'll be behavioral change. Some people bury themselves in work. Some people just withdraw. Quite a number of ways that people deal with those kind of things. So you need to be there, but don't try to fix it. Don't try to fix it, because even for these people, sometimes it takes longer than you would expect. You may think that somebody would grieve for 5, 6 months, 1 year, then they'd be okay. Some people take longer than that. So you need to be there, allow them to open up whenever they need to, allow them to grieve, allow them to go through the processes that they need to go through. When you need to offer them a shoulder, offer the shoulder. Sometimes just be there, be okay with them being quiet. Right. I'm taking a bit more time, but I'll tell you of a situation of a lady whose fiancé was killed a week to their wedding, and she was there. They were just going up and about the plans of their wedding, and then these guys just show up, and they killed the fiancé. So the day that they were supposed to have the wedding, they were burying the fiancé. So she would walk into spaces where they had been with this guy. Right. And because I knew her personally, I would walk in like this, and you see this lady sitting in here. She's in a daze. She's in a public place, but she's in a daze. So what I would do whenever I would run into her, I would just go and sit there. Say nothing, do nothing. I would interrupt my programs a lot, would mostly be with my wife, and I say, you know what, we can't leave this girl here. And you just sit there. And she will say nothing, and you will say nothing, because she didn't want to hear anything. Nothing made sense. So you've got to learn every individual and allow each individual to be in the space that they are in for their grieving.
Right. And then we have, of course, like I said in the intro, Shaz, the stages that have been outlined, and everybody is always, even yourself, trying to figure out, okay, according to this, where am I? So is it normally a gradual kind of progression towards them, or can you mix them up?
So you start with shock and denial, and then you end with acceptance. Everything in between, which is sadness, anger, depression, bargaining, you go through it on and off. Some people will take longer in the bargaining stage. Some people move past that a little faster, and they live more in anger for a longer time. There's no perfect way to grieve. There's no, this is the right way, these are the 7 steps, and in 12 months we guarantee you'll feel better. Grief is so personal, it's so different, and I think the misconception around grief is that people, will move on from grief. You never ever move on. You learn to move forward. It is something that's going to be a part of your life for the rest of your life. But you learn to now build your world all over again around that situation and find the little moments slowly that will help you. But you can move from cycle to cycle. It is not, these are the 5 stages, and these are the stages you have to be in perfectly, and if you moved back into living more in anger, something is wrong with you. When it comes to grief, sometimes people just don't know how to be with a person that's grieving, and a lot of the times it's not to correct, it's not to force them to move on. They don't want to sometimes hear you say, everything will get better. Because right now, in their world, everything is not better. They've had a whole world and a vision growing up either with a parent or with a loved one, or even sometimes just grieving the loss of a job, or grief it's not just for death. It's in so many different ways. It's grief of a divorce. But you're grieving something in your mind that you put in love, you put in emotion, you put faith into, and now slowly it has gone away. But even if I touch a little bit, when you look at a lot of people that grieve through divorce,
right,
divorce will happen. It's the final moment, literally, when you sign off a document. And you've been grieving the loss of that relationship for a very, very long time. You grieve the loss of softness and sweetness. You grieve the loss of we're no longer who we were before you get to the final stage. So a lot of the times you go through grief before you hit the main grief. And then all of that just comes out now. Because when you're in certain situations, you're dealing with a lot of shock and denial, and you tend to bargain, thinking, if I become better, if I change, let me stop asking the other person to do something. Let me become whoever they want the vision of me to be. So when you look at grief, it's not just for, mourning death. Those stages move into so many different things. It's the loss of a lot of different things in life.
Right, and I'm going to try and cover as much as we can in terms of navigating through that. Speaking of that, learning to navigate through it, Bobby, what do you think, someone needs to do in terms of just, it's happened? And again, we've talked about most times when I talk about grief, people think loss of a loved one. And, it's shattering, it's painful. But as Shaz has also pointed out, it could be a job, could be a divorce, could be all these other things. So what can someone do to kind of learn to navigate through them?
Something that I've been learning to do as well. I've just been reading a book about a guy called Neville Goddard. He's a lecturer from the 1940s. So the book is called Feeling is the Secret. And he talks about how you're supposed to handle your feelings, or how it makes it easier for you to get to know yourself and just your feelings and stuff like that. And something I'm finding very powerful is that we haven't really been taught this, maybe by our parents or in school or even in the circles we hang around, but people do not know how important feeling your feelings is, and how normal and okay feeling your feelings is. Because when you're able to feel your feelings without reservations, without being scared, and this is in the simplest of feelings. It could be happiness, it could be sadness, whatever it is. So when you're going through grief, allow yourself to feel. Sit in the feeling. You do not need any justifications. You do not need any answers. You need all these things. You feel like you need them, but what you need to do the most is just allow yourself to feel your feelings. Whether it's anger, whether it's regret, whether it's pain, whether it's hurt, whether it's whatever that you're feeling, sit in your feelings. It helps you kujielewa na kuelewa vile una react when you're in certain situations, and it helps you understand yourself better. And this also helps a lot when it comes to navigating through the healing process, because you need to understand that the brain is just a human organ. Ni kama mkono ama mguu. So when you're going through emotional pain, as well as the heart, when you're going through emotional pain, sometimes you feel as if it's physical, like it's your whole body hurts. That's because there's definitely a correlation, and you need to treat your mind and your heart as such. When you're not mentally okay, when you're not in a good space mentally, take care of your mind the way you would kidonda kwa mguu. Nurse it, be patient, be kind with yourself, take care of yourself, sit in your feelings. You don't try to yell at your pali umekatwa.
Be better.
Pona,
yeah.
Kuwa better, just you're way patient. It's like having a fracture. You're very patient with yourself. There's no telling when it's gonna get better. Unaweza ambiwa in 6 months it'll be okay, but you see, sometimes the pain still lingers. Like you have to be careful about that knee that you broke 2 years ago, because so that's how your heart is, and that's how your mind is. Feel your feelings. Sit in your emotions so that you're confident enough to be able to admit that I'm actually hurt and I'm actually grieving. And when you feel all these feelings, it also becomes easier for you to be able to communicate, say in the situation of your partner. Because when you're in a situation where you're confused about what you feel as well, it's very difficult to try and explain to someone else that this is how I feel and I don't want you to say anything to me. Because definitely the people around you always want to try and show the support. I'm here for you, I love you. Sometimes you do not want, just like CJ said, you don't want to hear anything. You don't want any solutions. You just want to feel whatever you're feeling. So I would really advise that. Take confidence in your feelings, sit in them, feel them. there's no timeline, there's no formula, there's no ati, you grieve for 3 years, apana. Like Shazmin said, it's not something you get over, it's something you learn to live with. So please be patient with yourself so that you're able to have a clearer mind when you're navigating. But when you're feeling your feelings, just sit in them and feel them.
And that is something, Shata, that we've talked about it here several. My boy Chala Opeangi chance, thinking about, or rather, feeling your feelings, as it were. And sometimes even you just put the pressure on yourself. When you, like Bobby is saying, you want to go back to work. Sijali Sema, sometimes people kind of escape and go back to work. I was guilty of that. So what do you think is the difference in terms of the way men in the present society deal with grief and the way women do?
More fire. For men, we go hard, man. We go hard. You go to when the going gets tough.
The tough get going? Or?
The men get going. Nataka nikwambie kitu. Unaona, for example, from Kokina Madhe, at TZ, say you lose a loved one. Men are not allowed to grieve at that moment. You are told to take care of the situation. After the entire process is over, now you can go grieve if you want to. Unaelewa? Again, kama mwanaume, if this thing that you're grieving about inakuinvolve wewe na partner wako, ni very rahisi you become from the person grieving to the accused. Unaona? Utapataga sasa huyo partner ana decide the only way to deal na grief yake ni ku-accuse. Unaona? So you go on the defense. You don't have time wewe mwenyewe kwanza kufeel hizo vitu Robert anasema feel your feelings. Now you go on the defense to defend yourself. Again, CJ amesema mtu anaweza kaa usemi kitu usimwambie kitu, msikilize tu, si ndio? Again, that is an accusation. You didn't do enough to help me heal. Unaget? So in all this, there has to be a coping mechanism that men come up with, which is ignore and ignore. Unaona? Again, if you say ukae nyumbani ufeel feelings zako, you have bills to pay. Unaelewa? And also people will not, you cannot get that time you want because people will call you lazy, or people will start telling you wewe sio peke yako, kuna wengine wamepitia kitu and they've gone through it. You see? So there's nothing you're telling us that is special. So as a man, easy vitu zote they must run in your head and you're told to be a man. Unaona? In this situation, take charge. Saidia huyu ku grieve. Sio wewe grieve, help them grieve. So when do you ever sit down, you as a man, where do you get the time with the bills that are pending, with everything that is happening around you? You have to be the support system here. When do you ever get time to sit down and say, you know what, actually I lost, and I need to feel that I lost so that I can recover from it? What we do is we keep running and we keep ignoring. We move from this to that, then one day it catches up and now you shut down.
That is a big problem there. So how does one balance? How can you achieve that balance? Oh, sorry. Before that, let's ask the question of the day, Asante Ibra. Here's the question of the day that we're asking. What ways have you dealt with grief and were they effective? What ways have you dealt with grief and were they effective? The SMS line is 22422. Again, we always say, if you are looking for some sort of anonymity, on the SMS platform is where we wouldn't see your name. So if you want to just express yourself, please feel free to do so. It is 22422. And then you can use the hashtag Daybreak if you also want to share and explain. So share and let's see how it's been. So CJ, I want to ask, how does one balance? Because in a situation that, for example, like the one Shatta is talking about, I guess it's mainly maybe loss of a child, right? So now you're in a situation where you have to be there for the other person, or even loss of a loved one, you have to be there for the other person. Then there is accusations, and then there is, you want to grieve as a man for yourself, but you have to be there. How do you kind of get that balance? And in the same breath, have that time where life has to go on, but you're also grieving?
You know, there are a lot of men who actually grieve in the bars. When Shatta talks about they don't have time, that is just because they do not have structured time to do that, but they really don't run away from the emotions. So you'll find these guys in the bar spaces, sitting with strangers, sitting with strange women that they want to talk to. This is how you find somebody sit with a bartender, taking his drink and just pouring out his heart because he feels safe to talk to somebody who will not hold them to account for whatever they have said, and they can actually blame the alcohol as well. So tomorrow when they sober up, they can deny responsibility for whatever they said, but they needed to bring it out. So the truth is that men still deal with it. And it is important for them to know that you just can't run away from this thing. I've been in situations, for example, if we talk about grief from the loss of loved ones, been in situations where you are thrown into the place where you have to take responsibility, while on the other hand, you've got to be grieving on this side. I went to work with my mother in the mortuary. I had to do that because I had bills to pay. I had a whole family to take care of and a whole lot of people to do that. So I had to push the barrier for nearly a whole week, took a trip, went to work for nearly 1 week, came back, then buried, because I knew when we would be getting into January, I would have all this group of people who needed to go into school and go into stuff like that. Eventually then, you begin to deal with this thing later. It catches up with you, Willis. No matter what you do, no matter how strong you think that you are, it catches up with you. So you need to find support systems, people who don't put any pressure on you to perform. It doesn't have to be, sometimes people will say, seek a therapist. Some people are not comfortable with those kind of things. So if I know that Shatta is the kind of person I can just be with and I don't have to perform, and I can go into his house and just lay there, sit on the floor, do nothing, go to his bed, lie on the bed and do nothing, and he will understand that I'm going through something, then I will go to Shatta. Or we will take a drive and I don't have to talk, and I don't have to be the guy that I'm always, I don't have to have any wisdom, I don't have to be powerful, I don't have to perform. If I know I have guys like that, then I should do that, because that's part of your healing process. It allows you the space to now sit in the feelings that Bobby is talking about. So I can still show up at work. Of course, I will be a very different person at work.
Right.
I will be at work but detached, or I'll compensate for what I'm feeling at work by becoming a workaholic. But I still need to find a space where I can just be, and nobody will pressure me to get better. They will not pressure me to become the man. They will not pressure me to know anything, to solve anything. I still need that space. Now, if we don't have those kind of support systems, it becomes very difficult for us then to handle that grief.
Right. And so the other thing, Bobby, is if you are dealing with, that, and you have somebody who, that's that kind of person she just described. I don't want to talk. I just want to come, sit, and stay there.
Yeah.
Now there's also you can't, I don't know if you can do that in perpetuity, like you can't do it forever. So when do you think is the time that you can say, okay, let's talk about it, or something like that? How do you kind of balance that?
Listen, there's no formula, there's no timeline. You have to understand that you have to be patient with yourself, and this is a very, very natural process. All you have to do, like CJ said, is just stay alive. That's all we need.
Just wake up.
That's all we need. Just stay alive. And I think you also, something I'm learning from what Shatta said is, I think we have to start being very, very intentional about the circles that we create ourselves, because it is very important to have a community around you that is very supportive. You need to have friends, hata kama ni mtu mmoja ama watu wawili ama ni brother ama sister, you need to have people who you can just do what CJ said, because it's very, very important. And si kila mtu atakuunderstand ati watu wataona Willis doesn't show up, Squeezy, he doesn't want to, come to work. There's people who will not understand, but you need people who don't even need you to explain anything. Because when you are ready and when you are able to, they know you will. So be very patient with yourself. Ini kama maumivu, huwezi harakisha, huwezi try kulenga, na huwezi push away. You can't sweep it under the rug, because emotions always show up. They always show up. It'll take 10 years, it'll take 50 years, it'll take 3 days. They always show up. That's why you have to be very honest with yourself. And it's way easier if you're honest with yourself and if you're able to sit in your emotions, because like I said, it's going to cultivate itatoa shame kwa emotions. Vile sisi, like I said, I've given an example before, like how me and Shazneen relate as women. It's very easy for us. By the time tumesalimiana in those 5 minutes, she'll have known how I am, how I've been, where I've been, who I've talked to, how I'm feeling, what I want to do the rest of the day. But I don't see men have such conversations. It's always a bit, I'm gonna say superficial. It's niaje buda, oh ball,
Freshy boy.
you know, it's not like, it's not, you know, I'm very exhausted or I'm very heartbroken. Oh, what is it? Can we talk for 2 minutes? So I think there's a bit of stigma or shame around feeling your emotions, when really that's your superpower. You being able to feel your emotions very boldly in a world where people are very scared to be themselves, that's your superpower. You being able to be vulnerable and say, I cannot come into work today because my mental health is not okay. When you surround yourself with people who understand all these things, it becomes very easy for you. And even showing up when you need to, even for the bills, because for real, life wendelea, na vitu wendelea around you. And sometimes you feel like you're being left behind, or you're not doing too much, or you're not doing enough. But that's why it's very important to be very intentional about the people you surround yourself with. Out there, you can go be, you know, the hero, go do your thing. But even when you come home, even just in your space, even at home, you need that love, you need that support. You need to know that people are going to show up for you. So please be very intentional with the people you let around you, because when they really love you, honestly, vitu kaizi si lazima explain kila saa. It'll be a bit easier for them to understand when the love for you is real. So take that bold step enough for you to be able to dissociate emotions from shame, or anything about feminine energy dissociated from shame. It's your superpower. When you're able to feel your feelings and show up as yourself, that's how it's way easier for you to deal with things and communicate with the people around you about the things that you need.
And we're going to take some feedback in just a bit. But before that, something very interesting I've just picked as I was listening, because something happened just this morning when I was, let's say, coming to work, so that people will not be able to pinpoint those who saw me. I was talking to somebody, and he's a dude, and he mentioned how guys just say, niaje. So we said hi, and then we went into just conversations, and he was reminding me of something. But then he kind of let out a very, because this guy, he looks so strong, macho, and most people think he's arrogant. But then he told me how he's dealt with, I think he's been divorced twice, and how he doesn't get to see his children, and how it's affecting him. And as he was talking about it, because when we started, of course, you know, when I'm around guys, then it became all very serious, and he was sad for a moment, and then of course then there was the moments when you realize he's trying not to get emotional, so he kind of plays with his ear, his eye, you know, and then it's like, anyway, you know, yeah, but we're good. We just, you know, we take life as it comes. So why don't people talk about some of these things? And if you're that person who, especially if it's your partner and they come to open up to you, and is a guy or a dude, how would you deal with something like that?
I think the biggest gift a woman can give a man is just to listen, and to put him in the right place where he can talk. Because as much as you can put him in the wrong place to criticize him for everything, you can put him in a space where he's allowed to feel his day, what he's been through. And it's the softness. This is the gift women have, the soft feminine energy, that if she's the right woman, will take the time to put you into a space where you feel, oh my God, I can breathe. This is the person I can talk to. This is the person I can feel what I have to feel, because she's not going to condemn me for being less of a man for feeling. In fact, she'll tell me how beautiful it is that I can feel what I feel, and there's no judgment and nothing is wrong with me. So I feel in a relationship, if a man is hurting, you know, ask your man. You can see signs, and it doesn't have to be the typical way women do it, but find the right time that would work for him. If it's not after work, make time to do a coffee, to go out, or the right time during the week to say, I've noticed this is how you are feeling, and I don't know if I'm right. but I just want to make sure you're okay. And it's about asking the right questions that probe him to get into a space to feel, I'll move past the shallow answers to be able to now open up and talk to you because you're my safe haven. And I feel that has to be the gift you give a man in a relationship, because you want him to go there and conquer and fight the whole world. He shouldn't have to come back home dealing with grief of a loss of a friend, a loss of job, a loss of money, and come home and feel empty. I can't talk to my partner. Then what are we doing together? That's the emotional gift you give somebody else, and it's unconditional and it's selfless. And it's beautiful. Women want hairy girlfriends, you know, they want the man to be this typical person I can share everything with. But then in that, are we letting the man share everything he needs to share as well and get off his chest? And I also feel it's about asking him about his past. Are you okay? Is there anything you need to heal from your past? As opposed to, I know what I want to pick from your past and already fight with you about. Because then he's going to shut and close. You're going to teach him in the relationship when he can open up, when he should keep quiet, and what's possible and not with communication. So it's all about the softness and the delicate way you can bring that out in a man.
All right, well, we want to take a look at some feedback. Let's start with the SMSs. All right, so Dixon, let's go back to Dixon. I'm to me, Dixon. All right, Eric Mondi says, okay, thanks. Avoid consoling the bereaved by using the phrase, I know what you feel. You actually don't. Men pour their grief in bars, some smoke weed to calm their nerves, and some go to an extent of living a solitude life. Beryl says, is heartbreak part of grief? Because I've been trying for like 5 months now and nothing is working. The pain is still there. It is, and we'll talk about that. Today marks exactly 1 year since my dad died in a road accident. I'm so sorry. I feel the memory is fresh in my mind. I feel like crying out loud, but my husband doesn't allow. So, naogopa, I end the job, then I just start crying. I end the job, then I start crying. I feel so depressed. I see it's better to be alone than grieve or be single but not alone. I'm 28. I lost my husband and I was 22. It's 6 years since, but the grief increases by the day. I'm unable to overcome it. At one time, a friend of mine died. It was very painful and unbearable. What I did is simple. I just accepted that he was no more and it was effective. Ooh, all right, Florence Mwiga from Yeri. I lost my mom when I was in Form 4. I didn't want to hear the word pole from anyone because I believed no word could bring back my mom. I hated God. I didn't want to hear anyone telling me that it was the will of God. I hated the Bible. I hated church and anyone who tried to sympathize with me. It was after 5 years that I started believing that there is a God, and to date, I talk about my lovely mom and God too. Anytime I visit someone who has lost a loved one, I can never initiate any discussion. I'd rather help her do house chores or just sit there. The experience is personal. I tell you, rest in peace, Mom, and sorry about that, Florence. So there are different things I want us to pick. There's the lady, for example, CJ, who says that, you know, it's been, I think she said 5 years and she can't cry because the man doesn't allow, so she waits for him to go to work and then cries. What would you advise such a lady?
See, the problem is not with the lady.
Yeah.
It's with the man. So we should have been advising the man.
The man, okay. Yeah.
But she just still needs to find a place, a safe place where she can pour out that emotion. A lady once told me of how she broke down at a hotel somewhere in Cape Town 7 years after losing the mom. For the 7 years, she thought she was okay. Then she went on a trip, and when she found herself alone in the hotel for the first time in 7 years, she totally just broke down. So I think suppressing the emotions is not helpful to this lady. She just needs to find a place, even if it is with her girlfriends, and just say, look, this is what I feel, and just let it out.
Does she eventually get to circle around to talking to the man? Probably.
Well, you see now, there are a lot of issues. Like when Shatta was talking, he raised the cultural issues as well, where certain cultures will not allow you to do certain things. And if the person is deeply rooted in that kind of a culture, he may not understand it. He'll just feel like, get over it. You know, there are people who believe that the day you bury, you're done. From there, they say, at least you're done with it. Now we can move on. But that's when most people actually begin the grieving process. So it depends on how that person is socialized. It may bring an unnecessary fight. If they can't feel the feel that you have, you need to find somebody else that you can talk to. So if she doesn't have friends, she can actually then go to a therapist. If she can afford one, she should go to a therapist, talk about that, because her feelings are valid and she cannot invalidate that, and she won't act for too long. One day it will come out through something. It will come out through, she will flare up. She will get angry over something. He won't even believe how she will react to maybe just a little disagreement, and he will think it's what he did, yet it won't be that. It's just these emotions that are welled up that then will show up at some point. So it's important for her to deal with it.
Yeah, and there's also something there, Shatta. Somebody said that, asking about heartbreak, and she said it's been 5 months. But people normally don't categorize it as much as, you know, that you've lost something, like losing somebody in terms of you're no longer together. And Shazmin also mentioned stuff like divorce. So what would you advise that person? It's been 5 months now, and she can't, I don't know if it's a she or he can't seem to overcome. Haishi.
Iko hapo tu. Kwanza before tuende kwa huyo, kwa huyo madam mwenye anasema bwana yake amwalau ku grief ama kulia. Why should he be the one allowing you to do it? If you are watching, why is he? Why are you giving him that power to be the one to allow you to feel what you want to feel? Feel it. Cry if you want to cry. What's the worst that he can do? Walk away. Let him walk. Feel what you're feeling, because if you don't, you will go feel it somewhere else in a wrong way. Feel kenye una feel. Na jamaa kama anaocho wherever he is, unatuangusha kama maboy child. Sawa? Amesikia maboy child anaangalishagwa hivyo, kuna upole. For the feel what you want to feel, man. If you want to cry, cry. Hata akiwa hapo, just cry. Atafanya nini? Atamka aende, but atajua una heart. Other than ati akikuja you are crying 5 minutes, unasikia na knock mlango, you start wiping your face. Why should you live in pretense? If you're not okay, you're not okay. That's it. No one should force you to be okay. If Roberta's hearing is not okay, it's not okay. It cannot be forced to be okay.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That was it, agreeing to what you're saying.
Sasa kwa huyo mwenye anasema ana agree 5 months na it is not getting better, ni juu anajikimbiza. That's why anajikauntia mpaka time. Anajiforward yeye mwenye anajiambia it's 5 months, I should be getting better. It's not that. It will get better when it gets better. You might wake up tomorrow and feel better. You know, there is no time frame that someone should feel a heartbreak for 2 months or 5 months. You can feel it at 1 year, but one day you will be able to live with it. Utaamka tu siku moja you feel actually siumwi, I'm not feeling that pain I used to feel. Unaona so usijiharakishe mami. Just take your time. Feel what you're feeling. It is very good, because if you ever walk into another relationship, you will not have these scars to deal with. Okay? So uko sawa. Keep feeling what you're feeling. For men, sasa inao ni serious. Tafadhali kuna situations that if you're dealing with grief with a partner and they are not allowing you to grieve, they are actually blaming you. I've been in situations, man, you know, and they're accusing you of bringing this grief. Unaelewa? If you ever get to such situation, please walk away. Because ina maana gani ukae kwa nyumba? Instead of being my support system, you are a problem to my problems. You are another problem I have to deal with. In such a situation, if you feel this partner will not understand you, take a break. Go grieve. Yeye amalize grief yake. Kama mdarudiana sawa. Kama mdarudiana sawa. Unaona? Because I've seen men go through that say it's the loss of a child maybe, and then dem anaanza kuaccuse ndo ulinipatia pressure au uko unanifanyia ABCD. So uchali anakuja pale tuko probably akiji blame. Unaona? Juzo vitu ameambiwa, because you want to be there for this person, so you go with an open heart, and whatever they tell you sinks and you start believing it. Unaona? So this guy comes to us and anajiblame. instead of feeling what he's supposed to feel, sasa amejiongezea another burden. Unaona? In such a situation, please walk. Just go. That is a very toxic place to be at that moment. Unaona? If you cannot bring that person to see that you are both in one ship and you need to navigate this ship together, tembea kidogo. Enda ukae pahali na watu wenye watakusikiliza. Unaelewa? That is key. You need to know, if I go to Willis, atanisaidia in this way or that way. And if you're grieving, whatever you're feeling, if you need someone to do something, tell them. Unaelewa? Another thing that we are saying, that if I come to your place and I just sit there, probably maybe I want you to say something. Unaona? And you think if you say, you will trigger vitu kama hizo, so you just silent, you don't know how to deal with me. We mwenye una grieve, sometimes pia peana hints. It's very normal. You can start the story. Unaget, kuna situations kama najua dem hazi yake alipass, but alikuwa amechota maji kwa bucket iko kwa hao, and now she did not want anyone to touch that bucket na hiyo maji, na imecover 1 month. Unaget, sasa mtu mwenye ataenda maybe kumsaidia kufanya house chores, aenda mwage ile maji, you see, atakuwa umemsaidia. You need to be very aware that this person I'm dealing with is not okay, and when I'm going to this person, I do not expect this person to behave in a certain way. They can behave in any way, and I need to be able to accommodate that because I have decided to help. No one is forcing me. It's a choice you've made to go help this person. So when you go to help this person, don't go prescribing your help. Because I keep telling people, you might come to my house but it's in a TV. You want to buy me a TV and I don't have supper. You know? You need to listen to the help I want. Then just accommodate that. Don't come prescribing your decisions on me.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Well, you wanted to add something? I was
just to add on what Shat is saying, I remember a story of this couple. They were a young couple then, and they lost a baby. So the lady wanted to grieve by going out. The guy wanted to grieve by staying home. They're both grieving. And just that alone brought issues in their relationship because of how they grieve. That happens even to siblings. For example, they've lost a parent or something. Somebody will be feeling like, why are you not here? Why are you not mourning with us? The other person can't handle that, so they feel that they need to go out. There's a lot of breakdown of communication as well when people get into the mode of grieving. Their behavior is unpredictable, and the expectations we place on each other to act like things are normal, to communicate at what was the normal wavelength. Sometimes somebody may be thinking, okay, well, you dealt with something 3 months ago, so I'll be sending you a meme to your WhatsApp. You don't respond, and I get offended because I think you're back to where we used to be. You're still not there. I think people need to manage expectations around each other, both the people who are grieving and the people who are the support system. Everybody needs to manage expectations until the person gets to where Shata was saying, somebody can actually rise up and then get back. Otherwise, we'll be fighting over, everybody will be fighting everybody who is in pain. So I may feel like I don't want to visit the house because a parent is not there. Somebody else will be feeling like, so why don't you want to come home anymore nowadays? They don't know that that is my way of grieving. Somebody will want to keep everything that would remind them of the other person. Another person may want to do away with everything that would remind them of that other person. So there'll be a lot of flare-ups as well. People need to manage their expectations around each other and not just be very selfish around it.
And Shad, how do you deal with, even as we wrap up, how do you deal with, because there are people who, somebody said even after 5 years, I think the lady mentioned 5 years and she's still doing the same thing. And sometimes it's things that you remember, like CJ said, immediately after the funeral, you have to go back to the house without that last person. There are clothes in the closet there. You don't know whether to give them away, to stay them, certain smells. I remember for me, it was just walking by a supermarket with a cold freezer made me freeze because I remember that time in the morgue. So how does somebody deal with, going back after loss?
That is a beautiful question, because a lot of people miss the fact that grief becomes very physical internally. And when you're feeling emotion, or you go back to a moment when you're remembering something that happened, you have conditioned the body to think that that moment is happening in actual time. And so the body will go to fight, flight, and freeze all over again. And this is why you have to slowly learn your triggers, and you slowly have to train yourself with time to become more aware of the thought you're having. What is it triggering within my body? Where is the emotion sitting inside of my body? And not have shame to be able to put your hands there and ask that emotion, what is it that you need me to learn from now? What is it you want to say to me? And journal it down, and then learn to ask yourself, what's below this emotion? Because a lot of people tend to just live in that. When I walk past the freezer, I remember sadness, and then you numb it. But what's below sadness? Let's say it's loneliness, and you keep going. What's below loneliness? And at some point with that exercise, you learn there's light, there's freedom. It's just we don't allow ourselves the freedom of that emotion. We feel, if I let that emotion go, am I letting the person go? If I move on, am I disrespecting that they passed away? Is part of me, who am I without the grief? Because I already don't know who I am with the person that's passed away. So how do I learn better ways to grieve as well? And an analogy I always love is when you take a tea bag, if you leave a tea bag just the way it sits, you won't know the power of a tea bag. But the power of the tea bag can only be shown if it's put in boiling hot water. And that's when it will release everything that it has to. So it's not to run from how you feel, but it's also not to stay at level with how you feel. It's to go within the body, because we leave these little black bags of emotion. They stay inside. They're never ever dealt with. And I promise you, they come out as sickness and physical illness. Because only 5% of the world is born with genetic disorder or an illness. 95% of the people that walk into a hospital is because you have learned to create illness in the body, because thought was never dealt with. Emotion just sits and it bubbles and it festers and it makes you ill. So I would say learn to go beyond the current emotion you feel. So it's more spiritual, not only godly, but more spiritual for yourself. Because healing, once you heal in, you slowly allow yourself to feel that outside as well.
All right, well, unfortunately, we're out of time. That one, iliniongelesha. So yeah, unfortunately, we're out of time. We want to end there, but you can reach out to any one of us after, in case you feel there's something we said, or there's a learning, that you want to pick up, or if you want to even pick up, for example, the book Roberta is reading after this. Yeah. Well, of course, when she's done with it, it is. You can reach out in any way that we can help. Some of you are normally asking a lot of questions in the DMs, and which is good. We encourage that a lot. If we can help you in one way, shape, or form, we are happy to do that. So make sure you follow Shatterboy, Shatter_boy, on Twitter. On Twitter, Shatter Tikitaka, Shatter_boy on Instagram, at Roberta Bobby on all platforms, and www.loveandorgasms.com, and also to the podcast, Shazmin Bank on all platforms as well, CJ Atemo on all platforms as well, and yeah, Atamimi Willis Roburu on all platforms. So I guess at the end of the day, one thing that I have personally learned is that grief, pain is very individual. Somebody said, hapo hivyo, that don't go and tell somebody, I know how you feel. You cannot know exactly how somebody feels, even if the pain is the same. So, be there as much as you can, be kind to one another. But most importantly, like I always say, when you look in the mirror, even if it's just on your phone, ukipiga your selfie, be kind to that person that you're seeing there, because that's the most important person. Peace and love. God bless you.